never encountered readings like this before.
4 phases locked and ready to fire, sir.
Hey guys, it's Terrier of Terror back again with another episode of Behind the Numbers. Today we're going to take a peek at the first 3 prime research items in the combat tree of your research building. What we want to do is we want to look at what they say they're going to do for you, and we'll talk a little bit about what they're actually going to do for you, because it's a little bit different than what some players may think is going to happen. Talk a little bit about the resources needed and for you to invest in them. When can you get them approximately? When will you be able to get your hands on these? And then of course, should you invest your research time and resources to procure these 3 prime items? We'll also go ahead and take a look at the impact that investing in these items had on my ships when I went ahead and pulled the trigger. I have before and after screenshots, and I have some analysis where I'll break it down. Again, this is behind the numbers, so we're going to show you some numbers. We'll show you exactly what happened, how much did it improve my ships. And then we'll show you a little tip on how you can calculate and estimate what kind of an impact it's going to have for you and your ships, right? So that before you invest your research time and resources, you'll know with a fair amount of accuracy what exactly kind of a boost you're going to get. So that's kind of the idea. Let's go ahead and jump in here and look at the research building. We're going to the combat tree, and we're going to go to, here's my 3 prime items that we're going to be looking at: prime damage, prime hulls, and prime shield. Prime damage is something that you can get pretty early in the game, relatively speaking, at least as early as level 12, I believe. The only resources you need to spend to get it is dilithium, which is hard to come by for sure early on in the game. It's actually hard to come by even later on in the game, but it is something that you can farm by killing hostiles. So it is definitely achievable. It's just going to be a little bit of a grind if you really want to get it that early on. What does it do, or what does it say it does? It says that it adds 100% bonus to weapon damage for all ships. That's what it says it does. Yes, it does, but it doesn't do it the way that some players may think that it does. It doesn't take what your reported number is on your ship. And so let's go take a look at it right now. Let's go take a look at my Tala, and what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and look at my attack damage, and my damage per round is 4,469. Some players might look at that and say, hey, I just got prime damage, it should double that. And the answer is no, it's not going to double that, because that number you're staring at the screen is already taken into account other buff percentages that are increasing the damage of my Tala. And I have other buff percentages that are increasing the damage of all of my ships, because there's other things in the research tree that can impact damage. There's buildings that can impact damage. So prime damage isn't something that would be operating by itself. There's other buff percentages that are in play, and they don't stack. The percentages themselves get added together and then get applied to what is referred to as the base damage. So this is going to be true for all 3 of the primes: prime damage, prime hull health, and prime shield health. For hull, there is a base hull health number, and any buff percentages are going to be applied against that base hull health number to give me what the extra hull health is after applying the prime impact. So that's how it works from a mechanics perspective. This will be a little bit clearer when we look at an example, because I have all the numbers detailed out, and you'll be able to follow that. Let's go back into the research tab and look at the other 2. So there's prime hulls. Prime hulls is going to add, as mentioned, 100% to hull health for all ships. You most likely won't be able to get this until level 20, because it requires a 3-star uncommon ore, and you can't mine 3-star uncommon ore until level 20. So unless you buy a pack, which you can inside the offer tab that they have here, sometimes they'll put that up there and they'll give you the resources. You can go ahead and pay some dollars and cents if you want to jump ahead. But if you want to go the free to play method, you're going to most likely need to wait until around level 20. You can get some a little bit earlier, especially if you do race to Ops 20. I think you can get some early that way. But most likely you won't be able to get enough for sure until you hit around level 20 if you're going the free to play way. So prime hulls, 100% to hull health. Prime Shield is 100% to shield health. Again, the mechanics we kind of talked about, how it's actually working. Now you know what the resources are, when you can get them. Are these things you should invest in? Absolutely, you should invest in these. In my opinion, you should invest in these as soon as possible. Prime damage is something that can be a little bit painful to farm all the dilithium you need to get that super early in the game. But the earlier you get these in the game, the more benefit it's going to feel like it's giving you, right? Because there's other buff percentages that are going to be a lot lower early on in the game, such that the amount of benefit you're going to see when you look at the screen is going to be a lot closer to that 100% number. As you get further along in the game and other research items get researched up, individual research components, like just one of these components, like individual prime damage, starts to lose its individual impact, if you will, because it's mixed up with all the other ones. The actual impact is still the same, but your perception of what that impact is going to be a little bit less, and that'll make a little bit more sense as we get in here and look at an example. So let's jump to that right now. Let's go ahead and jump over to some screenshots I got, and we'll go ahead and look at the before and after impacts on two of my ships when I invested in these. Specifically, we're going to look at prime hulls and prime shields, so I got some before and after on that. Okay, what we're looking at right here is I have my jellyfish. I got some random crew guys in there. I'm not really worried about that right now, but I got my jellyfish in here, and you can see a before and after in terms of what my jellyfish stats were before I invested in prime hull and after I invested in prime hull. So if I look at the top right, you can kind of see me detailing out exactly what happened here. So my hull health was 16. I'm going to focus on the hull health here, but I also showed the impact on my power rating. The hull health was 16,000 before I had researched prime hull. After I researched prime hull, it jumped to 23,000. That's the first green box on the top right there. Jumped to 23,000. So the increase in hull health was 7,000 or 44%. Again, it's not a full 100%. It's going to be 44% because that 100% is applied to the base hull health. Okay, I can actually estimate what my base hull health is now because I was able to see what the impact was when I applied this research item. So here's my estimate as I'm going down in the middle section here on the right. So my estimated base hull health, the prime hull increases 100%. My actual hull health increased by 7,000. Therefore, the base hull health must be 7,000, right? So it's really simple because it's 100%. So my base hull health is 7,000. I can kind of prove this out, and I do on the bottom right, where I can recalculate exactly what my current hull health is. So I take my newly discovered base hull health number, which is 7,000. Then I add the prime hull bonus, which is 7,000. I add the ship hanger bonus, because ship hanger provides a bonus to your hull health as well. And at the time of doing this test, it provided 57%, so that gives me another 4,000. Then the officer health bonus also increases my hull health, and in this case it was 70%, so that's 70% multiplied by, again, that magic number, the base hull health of 7,000. That gives me 5,000. When I add all that together, I get to a 23,000 number. That's my estimate, and if I look at my screenshot on the bottom left there, yep, sure enough, it is 23,000, so you can see the recap. So this sort of also highlights why investing in these sooner rather than later can have a higher perceived impact, right? Because the longer I wait to invest in these, the higher my ship hanger percentage bonus is going to be. The higher my officer health bonus is potentially going to be, because I'll get more rare officers and higher stat officers. And there could be other research items that could impact my whole health that will also start to take effect. And so when I look at my bonus from a prime hull health right here, it's 7,000, but that 7,000 ends up getting a little bit watered down by the fact that I'm getting 4,000 from ship hanger and 5,000 from officer health bonus. The more stuff I have that I research in the future are just going to make that seem to even have a less of an impact. The reality is it's still having the same final number impact, but your perception will be a little bit different because of what you're seeing in game on the listed whole health screen. So this is the impact to my jellyfish. I actually did the same thing with my North Star. So I have the before and after in the North Star, and of course you're going to see roughly the same thing, but this sort of highlights the idea about the research tree having more of a muted impact because I have other research items that are impacting survey ships. So here I got the whole health starting at 49,000. It moves to 67,000 after prime hull gets into effect. So then the increase was 18,000 or 37%. See, so it increased by 37%. If I go back to my jellyfish increased by 44%. But my North Star increased by 37%. Why did the North Star seem to not have as much of a perceived increase? That's because if you go to the bottom right, you're going to see there's an extra research item that's already buffing my survey ships, and that is survey hull integrity. It's giving me another 70% of hull health, so 70% multiplied by 18 gives me the 13,000. I won't go through all the individual stats here in words, if you will. You can freeze this and you can read this and analyze this to your heart's content. What I'll do is I'll jump over to shields. I'll go through this really quick at this point because I think it'll be highly repetitive otherwise, right? So I have 16,000 is what my beginning health was. I went to 25,000. That led to a shield health increase of 56%. That's really nice. You can see my recap on the bottom where I'm validating that, yep, I got the right number. Prime shield and officer health bonus. I didn't have anything else that was impacting shield. So the perceived impact here of my shield health increase was felt a lot higher, and it was 56%. I did the same thing with North Star. Again, it was muted. This time my benefit was only 49% in the middle there. My benefit's 49%, and the reason is because I have the survey shield health down below, which is sort of muting my perceived impact. Again, the real impact is still the same. It's the percentage multiplied by the base number that's providing what that stat is. Okay, so these have been a couple examples. You can kind of see how these play through. You can freeze these videos and look through the numbers. Now let's go ahead and jump to how you, a player, can go ahead and estimate this, right? Because I'm coming up with an estimate of my base health before and after I did the investment. So I've already done it, right? But maybe you don't know if you want to invest in it. You really want to know what that increase is going to be. Is there a way that you can determine what that's going to be? And the answer is absolutely yes. So let me go back to, I'm going to shift back over to the game, and I'll show you what you need to move around on the game, and then I'll come back and show you the breakout of the numbers. Okay, we're back in the game. I have my Tala up. So let's say my Tala is going to be my test case here. And so I'm going to look at the hull and the shield health specifically. So let me scroll over here to the right to show what my shield health and my hull health are. My shield health is 10,000 and my hull health is 18,000. That's what they are right now. I want to know what my base number is, though. How can I find out what my base number is? Okay, well, to do that, what I can do is I'm going to go into my officer tab. I'm going to remove all of my officers. I will have already done this incidentally, right? So you can see all my officers have been removed. The only officer I'm going to put in here, because the first one I'm going to try to figure out is my base hull health. So I'm going to have one officer, and he's going to be below deck initially, and that's going to be the Green Scotty. And the reason is because Green Scotty, what he does, he has an officer ability that increases hull health. And it actually increases original hull health. It's interesting. He says increase original hull health. Everybody else increases the original number too, but for whatever reason, he's saying it, okay? So I increase original hull health of 14%. So I know if I put him in an officer seat, he's going to increase my hull health by 14%. I know what the old numbers were, right? So I had 18,000. Let me look at it actually before I make this change to double check it. So it's 18,000 is my hull health right now. Let me go ahead and put him in the officer seat. So I'm going to go ahead and confirm that. So he's in an officer seat. He should be having an impact now. He is now increasing my hull health by 14%. And so my hull health moved up to 19,000. Now these are rounded numbers, and unfortunately the way the rounding seems to work, it seems like everything rounds down. So this could be 19,800 as best I can tell. It seems like everything's rounding down. But regardless, it increased my hull health by about 1,000. So I went from 18,000 to 19,000. Okay, so armed with that information, we can use a little bit of math, a little bit of algebra to kind of determine what the base hull health is. Okay, so let me go ahead and I'll jump back to an analysis page where we can actually show you an equation that you can use, where you can plug in some numbers, and we'll discuss a little bit more about this. All right, so this is the analysis page. Now, what you're seeing here on the top is the standard formula, right? It's going to be your base hull health, which right now we don't know what the answer is to that, so it's a question mark. But your base hull health multiplied by the buff percentage is going to be equal to your hull health increase. Now I know it increased by 1,000. That I already know. And I know my buff percentage is 14% because I read it on the screen. That's what Scotty says he does. Okay, so he increases it by 14%. What I can do is I can rearrange this equation, and so that's what the second set down there is. I can rearrange this equation so that I can solve for what the base whole health is. My whole health increase was 1,000. I divide that by the buff percentage, which is 14%. That gives me 7,143. So my estimate, and this is an estimate because these are rounded numbers, and like I said, the numbers seem to round down. So it could be 7,000, it could be all the way up to 8,000. But this is at least a rough estimate that you can use to help you get an idea of, well, how much of an increase am I going to get if I were to invest in Prime Whole. If I didn't already have it, if I were to invest in Prime Whole Health, I would expect it to increase around 7,000. Now that's for Prime Wholes. I got some notes down there explaining. So for Prime Shield, you can do the exact same thing, but do it with Cadet Ahura because she increases shield health. You could also do Arcady. He increases shield health, either one. For Prime Damage, you want to estimate that, go ahead and use Cadet Kirk because he is, from a screen perspective, is how I will say this, from a reported screen damage, he is also applied to your base damage stat. So you can go ahead and figure out what your base damage is too there. I have my own suspicions about if that's really what's happening, especially with the results in my first episode, which I would encourage you to go watch because the numbers seem to be not necessarily applied to the base. At least that's what I'm interpreting when I'm looking at the numbers. So you can leverage that to your advantage and then go ahead and calculate what your base numbers are so that you have a pretty good rough idea of what's going to happen if you invest your research time and resources into these Prime items. All right, guys, that's a wrap. I think this has been a good video kind of showing you the mechanics of these items. If this is something you felt that was helpful, if you enjoyed the content, you enjoyed the way that I presented it, especially the behind the numbers approach, right, kind of really showing you what's actually happening with these items, please smash the like and subscribe. That's how I know you guys are getting value out of this. I enjoy doing this, and hopefully you guys enjoy watching it. Stay safe out there. Peace.